The night the billionaire left a $0 tip, the rain didn't fall so much as hang in the air, thick, icy mist clinging to the windows of Harbor Light Grill like it didn't want to let go. Inside, the place was almost empty. It was the dead stretch between late dinner and drunk midnight crowds, when the neon signs hummed louder than the customers and the coffee tasted like it had been reheated 3 times, which, in Marcus's case, it had. Marcus Cole, black single dad, sleeves rolled up, apron stained from a 12-hour shift, wiped down table 12 for what felt like the 100th time that week. His feet ached, his lower back screamed, and his eyes stung from lack of sleep, but his smile, somehow, still came easy. He had learned a long time ago that people tipped better when you didn't look like you were falling apart. "Top me off, Mark?" Old Mr. Henson lifted his chipped mug at the counter without looking up from his crossword. He smelled like engine oil and menthols, the scent of a mechanic who'd given his whole body to other people's broken cars. Marcus grabbed the pot, forced some warmth into his voice. "You know this stuff's gonna turn your blood to sludge, right?" Henson snorted. "At my age, sludge'll just move things along." Marcus chuckled, poured, moved on. It was muscle memory now. Refill, wipe, check on the girl in the hoodie studying at the back, pretend not to notice when she quietly counts coins for her fries. 5 years ago, his nights didn't look like this. Back then, he sat in a glass building downtown, writing code and arguing about deadlines, with a salary that arrived on time and benefits that covered everything until the day they didn't. Then a drunk driver ran a red light on a sunny afternoon and turned his life into before and after. Before, husband, software engineer, 2 incomes, a plan. After, widower, single dad, and a bank account that bled faster than it filled. Now his title was simpler. Waiter, black single dad. And the job was simple too. Keep moving, keep smiling, keep the lights on for his little girl. Zuri was 8. Marcus kept a picture of her taped inside his locker. Gap-toothed grin, hair in a puffball ponytail, holding up a best reader ribbon like it was Olympic gold. Every late night, every double shift, every sore knuckle from carrying trays that were too heavy, he measured it all against that smile. 10:30 rolled around and the grill went quiet. The college kid left with a shy thank you and a $3 tip that probably hurt to give. Henson finished his crossword, muttered a goodbye, and shuffled out into the wet street. That was when Marcus noticed her. She sat alone in the corner booth by the window, back straight, hands wrapped neatly around a white mug. No phone, no book, no distraction. Just eyes that had been watching the room the whole time. He'd clocked her when she first walked in. Everybody had. Black blazer tailored sharp enough to cut glass, diamond stud earrings catching the weak light, a watch on her wrist that probably cost more than his car and his rent combined. Not the kind of woman who ended up at a shoreline diner that smelled like grease and coffee at 10:30 on a Tuesday. Her plate held the remains of a slice of lemon pie she barely touched. Her coffee sat, half-finished, steam long gone. Marcus smoothed his apron and walked over with the pot out of habit. "Top you up, ma'am?" She lifted her gaze slowly. Her eyes were a dark, unreadable brown, the kind that made you feel like you were saying more than you actually said. "That won't be necessary," she replied. Her voice was low, controlled, like someone used to making decisions other people obeyed. He nodded, retreated. Something about her presence pulled at the air in the room. Money had a way of doing that, bending space, even in small places. At last, she slid out of the booth, collected a leather handbag that looked softer than his pillows at home, and walked to the register. "Just the coffee and pie?" Marcus asked, fingers moving over the ancient keypad. "Yes." No small talk, no fake smile. "That'll be $9.40. She handed over a black card that felt heavier than it should. He ran it, The register beeped, the receipt scrolled out. He passed her the pen, watched her sign quickly, efficiently. No hesitation. Then she turned and left, heels tapping a clean rhythm against the tile until the door chimed and swallowed her into the rain. Marcus glanced down at the receipt. Subtotal. Tax. Tip. 0.00. He let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. You'd think people who have more would leave a little more, Tiffany, the other server, murmured as she passed behind him. Marcus shrugged, folding the slip in half. Can't miss what you never had. Still, disappointment sat like a stone in his stomach. A zero tip from someone dripping money always stung more than a small tip from someone counting coins. He grabbed a rag and headed back to clear the table. The plate scraped softly as he lifted it. The fork clinked against the ceramic. That's when he saw it. A small white envelope, almost the exact size of the plate's base, tucked neatly underneath, so close to invisible that if he'd been rushing, he would have missed it. On the front, in precise, sharp handwriting, for the waiter who still remembers people's names. Marcus froze. The diner hummed behind him, the buzz of the fridge, the soft sizzle from the kitchen, but in his head, everything went quiet. His hands, tired a moment ago, suddenly trembled. He slid a thumb under the fold and opened the envelope. What he saw inside made his heart lurch so hard it hurt. Whatever this was, the billionaire hadn't left nothing. She'd left something that could rearrange his entire life. For a long moment, Marcus just stared at the envelope, fingers hovering, pulse thudding in his ears like someone knocking from inside his own chest. He wasn't the type to get spooked easily. Single dads didn't get the luxury. But something about the weight of that envelope, too light, yet somehow heavy, pulled a strange pressure into his lungs. He slid it fully out from under the plate, holding it like it might break. The handwriting on the front was elegant, controlled, almost cold, for the waiter who still remembers people's names. He swallowed. Most customers didn't know he did that intentionally, called them by name, remembered their usual orders, their little preferences. It made the job feel less like survival and more like connection. He opened the envelope. Inside was a single folded card, thick, expensive cardstock, the kind he'd seen in luxury boutiques and private events he could never afford. He opened it. At first, he saw only a short message, written in the same precise handwriting. You served more than coffee tonight. Come to this address, tomorrow, noon sharp. Below the signature line, no name, just a raised emblem pressed into the paper with a gold foil crest. Marcus frowned. He'd seen that crest before. Somewhere? On a magazine cover? A billboard? A real estate article? It hit him like a dropped plate. Sloan Argent, billionaire tech heiress, owner of half the waterfront, CEO of Argent Dynamics, the company that once partnered with the firm he used to work for. Marcus's breath hitched. His old life, before the crash, before losing his wife, before the bills and cut hours and everything collapsing, had brushed shoulders with her world from far, far away. But why would she leave him a note? Why leave no tip, yet leave this? He turned the card over. A second line appeared, embossed lightly on the back. Bring no one, and be ready to walk away from everything you know. A cold ripple crept up Marcus's spine. Behind him, Tiffany leaned closer, squinting. What's that? A complaint? Marcus snapped the card shut instantly. Too fast, too defensive. Her eyebrows shot up. Damn. Touchy much? Sorry, Marcus muttered, sliding the envelope into his apron. His hands trembled before he steadied them on the edge of the table. Just personal. Tiffany shrugged and went back toward the counter, mumbling about burnt fries and rude customers. Marcus stood rooted at the booth, staring at the empty space where Sloane Argent had been sitting minutes earlier. The faint scent of her perfume still lingered, something subtle and expensive that didn't belong anywhere near a diner floor sticky from a soda spill. He replayed the moment, her stillness, her eyes that had watched everything. The way she signed the receipt with zero hesitation. The way she left, silent, deliberate, like someone who came not to eat, but to observe. Tomorrow, noon. At an address from someone whose world existed galaxies away from his. And be ready to walk away from everything you know. His heart lurched. Was this a job offer? A warning? A prank? A mistake? He thought of Zuri, curled up in her pajamas at home, waiting for him with her usual, "Daddy, you're late," smile. He thought of overdue rent, the check engine light on his decade-old Honda, the freezer with 2 days of groceries left. He couldn't afford fantasies or risks. Not anymore. But then, why did the message feel less like a threat and more like an opportunity wearing a dangerous coat? He walked to the kitchen, hung up his apron, and clocked out with muscles so tight he could barely sign his name. In the parking lot, the rain tapped against the windshield of his old Honda like impatient fingers. Marcus held the envelope one more time, tracing the embossed crest. Be ready to walk away from everything you know. He started the engine. He didn't know it yet, but tomorrow at noon, his entire life would tilt off its axis. And everything he thought he knew about that woman, about himself, and about the message hidden under that plate, was about to unravel into something far bigger than a $0 tip. Marcus barely slept. He spent half the night staring at the ceiling above his mattress, replaying the same questions over and over. Why him? Why a hidden note? Why a billionaire? What did walk away from everything you know even mean? By morning, the envelope lay on the kitchen counter like it had grown heavier overnight. Zuri ate her cereal at the table, humming under her breath as she colored. She didn't notice Marcus staring at the card like it was a detonator. "Daddy?" she asked suddenly, without looking up. "You're thinking too loud." He blinked. "Too loud?" She nodded with fake seriousness. "Your eyebrows do that squishy thing when you're stressed." He forced a laugh. "It's nothing. Just work stuff." Her eyes softened, the way only a child's could. "I like when you're home. I don't want you to work more." That hit him harder than the note. He hugged her tight before dropping her off at Mrs. Alvarez's place. He didn't tell her where he was going. He didn't tell anyone. 1:54 a.m. Marcus stood outside the address printed on the card. Only he hadn't expected this. Not a mansion, not a skyscraper, not a corporate office. Instead, an abandoned-looking warehouse on the quiet end of Pier 9, half swallowed by fog. Tall metal walls streaked from years of sea wind, no signs, no guards, just a single black SUV parked near the loading dock, the kind of setting where people on TV got kidnapped or recruited, depending on the budget of the show. Marcus hesitated. He could still leave, go back to the diner, pretend none of this ever happened. But something tugged him forward. "You served more than coffee tonight." He stepped closer. The warehouse door opened before he touched it. A tall man in a charcoal suit stood there, broad shoulders, buzz cut, eyes stern. Not a security guard, more like the kind of operative who didn't need a weapon because he was one. "Marcus Cole?" the man asked. Marcus straightened. "Yeah." "Follow me." No greeting, no explanation, just efficiency sharpened into a blade. Marcus stepped inside. The warehouse was nothing like he expected. The exterior looked abandoned, but inside, it was a private, high-tech command hub. Chrome tables, soft panel lighting, rows of screens tracing data streams he didn't recognize. Not quite corporate, not quite government. Something in between. Marcus's pulse quickened. He wasn't supposed to be here. People like him didn't walk into places like this. Not without permission, not without a badge, not without a background check that took 6 months. "Why am I here?" he asked. The man didn't answer, just led him past a glass wall. Behind it, she stood waiting. Sloane Argent. In daylight, her presence was even sharper. Her black blazer looked custom-made. Her hair was pinned in a sleek twist, her expression unreadable. But her eyes, those same dark eyes from the diner, now carried something else. Recognition and purpose. "Mr. Cole," she said softly, "thank you for coming." Marcus swallowed. "Why did you leave that note? And why here? I mean, what is this place?" Sloane dismissed the operative with a small gesture. The door clicked shut behind him. Then she stepped toward Marcus. "I didn't come to the diner for pie," she said. "I came for you." His heart dropped. "For me? Why?" She reached into a drawer and slid something across the table. Marcus stared. It was a photograph, old, worn, edges bent, but unmistakable. A picture of him, younger, standing outside his old software firm, smiling, hopeful, unaware of what life was about to do to him. He touched the photo with trembling fingers. How do you have this?" Sloane folded her hands. "Because, Mr. Cole, your life wasn't ruined by accident. It was redirected." The room tilted. Marcus felt the floor slip beneath his thoughts. "What are you talking about?" Her voice never wavered. "Your wife's accident, your job loss, your financial collapse. They didn't happen randomly." A cold numbness crept up Marcus's spine. "Then what happened?" he whispered. Sloane met his eyes. "Someone targeted you." Marcus's breath caught. "And now, they're targeting me." The warehouse lights flickered. Outside, the fog thickened around the windows. Inside, Marcus Cole's old life cracked open, and something far bigger started to wake. For a moment, Marcus forgot how to breathe. The warehouse's quiet hum faded into nothing as Sloane's words echoed in his head. "Someone targeted you. Someone targeted me." His lips parted, but the words wouldn't come out. It felt like she had reached into the locked drawers of his past and pulled out things he had buried just to survive. Marcus stepped back, gripping the edge of the steel table to steady himself. "My wife's accident," he whispered. A memory flashed. Sunlight, laughter, a scream, shattered glass. "She died because of a drunk driver. The police said what they were told to say." Sloane cut in gently, but firmly. Marcus stared at her. "You're lying." "If I were," she replied calmly, "you wouldn't be standing in this room." She moved to a touchpad mounted on the wall. With a swipe, the screens lit up, rows of documents, surveillance stills, digital maps, and profiles Marcus didn't recognize. Sloane spoke as the images cycled. "6 years ago, your wife testified, unintentionally, against someone connected to a quiet corporate operation. She overheard a conversation in a cafe, mentioned it to a friend. That friend mentioned I to another. She turned to him, and suddenly she was a liability." Marcus felt the room close in around him. His chest tightened until it hurt. "No," he said, voice cracking. "She was hit by a drunk driver. He confessed." Sloane pulled up a photo. A mugshot. A man Marcus remembered only as a shape in a courtroom. "This man," she said, "was paid. His confession was scripted, and he was found dead in a motel 6 months later under an assumed name. Marcus's knees nearly buckled. He grabbed the back of a chair, knuckles white. "This is insane," he breathed. "Why are you telling me this now?" Sloane hesitated, and for the first time she looked less like a billionaire and more like a woman carrying something unbearably heavy. "Because the same group that erased your wife's truth just came after me." She tapped the next screen. A blown-up image of the diner, the night before. Sloane sitting alone, Marcus serving coffee. "Your diner is not random, Marcus. Your shift is not random. My arrival was not random." He stared at the screen in disbelief. "You've been watching me?" "Protecting you," she corrected. "And investigating what happened to your family." Marcus clenched his jaw trembling. "Why? Why me? I'm a waiter. I'm barely—" "You're not barely anything," she interrupted sharply. "You're the last loose thread of a story someone desperately wants erased." She stepped closer. "Your wife's death wasn't an accident. Your job termination wasn't due to budget cuts. Your financial downfall didn't just happen." Marcus shook his head violently. "No. Stop. I can't." "Marcus." Her voice softened, eyes locking onto his. "They tried to break you, and you survived." His breath shuddered out. Sloane lifted a folder from the table and slid it to him. "This is everything we've uncovered, and it's only the beginning." Marcus stared at the folder but couldn't lift it. His hands shook too much. "What do you want from me?" he whispered. At this, Sloane paused, and the next words she spoke changed everything. "I want you to help me take them down." Silence flooded the room. Not empty silence, the heavy, vibrating kind right before a storm breaks. Marcus felt something long dead flicker to life in his chest. A spark. A shadow of the man he used to be before grief hollowed him. But he shook his head, stepping back. "I'm a single dad. I don't fight secret organizations. I work double shifts. I make packed lunches. I try to keep the lights on." Sloane's gaze softened. "And that's exactly why you're dangerous to them." He blinked. "What?" "You weren't supposed to survive the world they pushed you into. But you did, and that makes you unpredictable." Marcus swallowed, throat burning. "What happens if I walk away?" Sloane exhaled, long and tired. "They'll come for you anyway." The warehouse lights buzzed above them. Marcus felt the truth settle in his bones like cold metal. His old life didn't crumble by accident. His new life wasn't as safe as he pretended. And now, the woman who left a $0 tip had handed him the truth he never asked for. But truth didn't care about timing. Truth cared about consequences. Marcus didn't move. Couldn't move. The truth had cracked open like a fault line beneath his feet, and he stood on the edge, dizzy, staring down into a past he never imagined was anything but tragic coincidence. Sloane watched him carefully, as if studying the moment a man realizes his life story was written by someone else. Marcus finally managed, "Why didn't anyone tell me? Why didn't the police? Why didn't anyone—" "Because," Sloane said softly, "you weren't meant to ask questions. You were meant to drown quietly." The words hit him like a blow. Marcus turned away, palms pressed against the cold steel table, breathing hard, fighting the tremor in his hands. He thought of Zuri, her breakfast smiles, her drawings on the fridge, her small voice saying, "You're thinking too loud again?" He wasn't allowed to break. Not then. Not now. He looked back at Sloane. "You said they're coming after you. Why?" Sloane tapped the edge of the folder she'd given him earlier. Because I stumbled onto the same information your wife overheard. Only now, I have proof. She opened the folder to reveal encrypted emails, offshore accounts, transaction trails, the kind of evidence powerful people buried with bodies if needed. Marcus's stomach twisted. And you want me... What? To help expose them? I want you to help me stay alive long enough to expose them. Marcus blinked. Why me? I'm not a fighter. I'm not trained. I'm barely... You're the only person who has nothing left for them to take, she said. The sentence landed like a punch. He hated how true it felt. Marcus stepped back, shaking his head. This is insane. I have a daughter. I can't get involved in something that could... Before he could finish, a loud bang echoed through the warehouse. A metal clang, a ripple of movement, the sound of a door being forced open. Sloane's face tightened. She grabbed Marcus's arm and pulled him behind a steel column. What's happening? He started, but she hushed him with a sharp gesture. Her eyes locked on the far end of the warehouse. The operative who had greeted Marcus earlier sprinted into view, blood running down the side of his face, suit torn. They found us, he hissed. They're already inside. Marcus's heart slammed against his ribs. Sloane didn't panic, didn't shake, didn't scream. She moved with the precision of someone who had lived through this scenario more than once. Take Marcus, she ordered. Exit Route C, move now. But the operative shook his head violently. No time, they cut the exits. We're boxed in. Another crash boomed, closer this time. Marcus felt the air shift around him. Fear clawed at his throat. What do they want? He whispered. Sloane turned to him, and for the first time he saw fear in her eyes. They want the files. They think you know too much. And if they find you both here... She didn't finish. She didn't need to. Marcus grabbed the table edge to steady himself. This is why you gave me that note, he whispered. You knew something was coming. I knew something was coming for me, she corrected. You were supposed to be safe. That diner should have been untouched territory. Another bang. A shadow crossed the frosted glass panel of the entry hallway. Sloane moved closer, voice dropping to a fierce whisper. Marcus, you have one choice now. Run with me, or die with the truth. His pulse roared in his head. Run? From who? Into what? He thought of Zuri again. Her laugh, her tiny sneakers by the door, the lunchbox she decorated with stickers. He couldn't leave her without answers. He couldn't let someone erase him the way they erased her mother. Marcus drew a shaking breath. What do I have to do? Sloane didn't hesitate. Survive the next 60 seconds. The lights flickered. The warehouse door exploded inward. Shadows poured in. And Marcus Cole, a man who once served coffee and wiped tables, stepped into the kind of danger he never asked for. Because sometimes, fate doesn't knock. It breaks the door down. The warehouse door didn't open. It detonated. Metal burst inward like shrapnel. A shockwave of dust and splintered hinges blew across the polished floor. Marcus ducked instinctively, arms over his head, ears ringing so hard he felt the vibration in his teeth. Figures in dark tactical gear poured in, silent, precise, faces covered, not police, not security. These men moved like a private kill team. The operative who'd escorted Marcus earlier lunged forward, shoving him behind a steel table. Low! Don't move! But Marcus's pulse was too loud to hear anything clearly. His world had been small a day ago. Cups of coffee, lemon pie, wiping tables, rushing home to Zuri. Now he was crawling across cold concrete while professionals aimed real guns at his head. A flash grenade rolled across the floor. Sloane reacted first. Down! White light ripped through the warehouse. Marcus squeezed his eyes shut, arms over his face again. His ears screamed, his vision blurred. When he blinked back into focus, the operative was already on the offensive, rushing the intruders with a weight and speed Marcus didn't think humans were capable of. Sloane grabbed Marcus by the wrist. "This way!" He stumbled after her, heart hammering. They sprinted between server racks and metal crates toward a side corridor. A bullet cracked into the column beside his head. Marcus dropped, hands flying to the floor. He wasn't built for this. He wasn't trained for this. He wasn't ready for any of this. But Sloane didn't slow. "Move!" she shouted. He forced himself up, legs shaking. They took a sharp turn through another corridor lined with locked cabinets and blinking control panels. Behind them, heavy boots echoed, closer, faster. Marcus looked back for 1 second too long. A figure appeared in the hallway, raising a suppressed weapon. Sloane yanked Marcus sideways, shoving him behind a crate. A soft, fifth sound flicked through the air, like a whisper with teeth. The bullet embedded into the metal where Marcus's head had been. He froze. If she hadn't... "Marcus, listen to me!" Sloane hissed, grabbing both his shoulders. Her face was inches from his, eyes fierce, breath sharp, trembling but focused. "You do not get to shut down right now. You do not get to freeze. You have someone waiting for you. You fight for her. Understand?" Zuri. Her name detonated inside him like a flare in darkness. Sloane pulled him to his feet. Another intruder rounded the corner. Fast. But for the first time, Marcus moved before thinking. He rammed his shoulder into a metal storage cart, tipping it over just as the attacker advanced. The loud crash blocked the corridor, sending tools and crates scattering across the path. The man stumbled. Sloane didn't waste the opening. She grabbed Marcus's arm and dragged him down another hallway. "That was good," she breathed, impressed. Marcus didn't answer. His lungs were on fire. They reached a steel door marked Sub-Level Exit, C. Sloane typed a code. Nothing happened. She tried again. Faster. Harder. Still nothing. "They cut the power to the emergency locks," she muttered. Marcus's fear surged again. "We're trapped?" "No," she said, stepping back. "We improvise." She grabbed a fire extinguisher, swung it with both arms, and smashed it into the control box. Sparks flew. The panel cracked open. Wires spilled out. She looked at Marcus. "You ever hotwire anything?" He blinked. "I can follow instructions. That's all I need." She shoved the wires toward him. He hesitated. "Marcus!" Her voice sliced the panic around him. "Trust yourself." He took a breath and went for it. Sloane called out the sequence, and Marcus stripped, twisted, and connected wires as fast as his trembling hands would allow. Bootsteps thundered behind them. Someone shouted. A laser sight crawled along the wall toward their position. Marcus crossed the final wires. The lock hissed. The door slid open. "Go!" Sloane cried. Marcus sprinted through first, Sloane right behind him. The moment they crossed the threshold, she hit the emergency panel and the door slammed shut just as bullets punched into it from the other side. They stood in a dim concrete stairwell, chests heaving. Above them, muffled voices. Below them, darkness. Sloane touched the rail. "They think we're heading up. They always expect people to rise one up." She looked at Marcus. "We're going down." Marcus swallowed hard. Down meant darker. Down meant deeper. Down meant closer to whatever they were trying so hard to escape. But he nodded. For Zuri. And together, they descended into the shadows, toward the part of the warehouse no one was supposed to see. The stairwell spiraled downward into near darkness, every step echoing like a countdown. Marcus kept one hand on the cold concrete wall, the other gripping the rail, part for balance, part because the shaking in his legs refused to stop. Above them, the attackers' muffled voices grew distant. Below them, nothing but hollow air. Sloane slowed only when they reached the bottom, an unmarked steel door with no keypad, no lock, no signage. It looked wrong. Not like part of the warehouse, but like something older, sealed shut for a reason. Marcus exhaled, breath fogging in the cold underground air. "This place feels like a bad idea," he whispered. Sloane didn't deny it. "It is a bad idea, but it's the only place they won't follow. Not yet." She pressed her palm to the center of the steel door. Nothing happened. Marcus frowned. "Is it broken?" Sloane gave him a look that said, "Nothing down here is ever broken by accident." She tapped the door in a precise rhythm, 3 short taps, 2 slow ones. A click answered. Then the door slid open with a slow, ancient groan, revealing a room that felt like stepping into another lifetime. Marcus froze. The lighting came from thin panels hidden in the ceiling, bathing everything in a cold, bluish glow. The space wasn't huge, but every inch of it was purpose-built. A table. Shelves lined with sealed boxes. 3 secure cases. And at the center, a single glass cylinder, empty, tall enough to hold a person. "What is this place?" Marcus asked, voice barely a breath. Sloane stepped inside, shoulders dropping with exhaustion and familiarity. "The truth," she murmured. "The part of Argent Dynamics nobody knows exists." Marcus followed slowly, his eyes drawn to the cases on the shelves. "What were you doing down here?" Sloane opened the first secure case. Inside were files, hundreds of them, sealed in transparent sleeves. "Trying to finish what your wife started." She didn't look at him when she said it. Marcus felt something in his chest twist. Pain, confusion, anger. "You keep saying that. What did she get dragged into? She was a teacher, a mom. She listened, Marcus." Sloane's voice was soft but sharp. "That's all it took." She lifted a file and placed it on the table, sliding it open. Inside were photos. Banks, offshore accounts, defense contracts. A symbol he didn't recognize stamped on every page. She overheard 2 Argent contractors talking about laundering payments through a rival firm. She didn't know the details, but she knew enough. And they couldn't risk someone connecting the dots. Marcus stared at the papers, vision swirling. "So they killed her?" Sloane didn't answer. Silence was confirmation enough. Something inside Marcus, something he thought was long dead, snapped awake. A cold fire burned through his chest. "But why come to me now?" he asked. Sloane hesitated, then pulled another file from the shelf. This one had his name on it. Marcus felt the world tilt. "What is that?" he whispered. Sloane opened it. Inside were copies of his employment history, notes about his wife's accident, financial breakdowns, Zuri's birth certificate, surveillance stills of him at the diner, a profile summary labeled "Low Priority, Monitor Only." His throat went dry. This is all about me." "They kept tabs on you," Sloane confirmed. "They wanted to make sure you stayed quiet. But when I found evidence tying your wife's death to them, they realized you were a loose end." Marcus's hands curled into fists. "So last night at the diner, you weren't there by chance." "No," Sloane admitted. "I needed to see if you were still someone they might use, or someone they might silence." Marcus felt sick. "So what am I now?" Sloane stepped closer. Someone who knows the truth, and someone they can no longer ignore. Marcus looked around the sub-level room again. The empty glass cylinder. The files. The secrets. The life he never knew he was part of. When he spoke, his voice was no longer shaking. What do we do next? Sloane's eyes softened, just a little. Next? She said. We stop running. A distant thud echoed above them. Dust drifted from the ceiling. They found the stairs, Sloane whispered. Marcus tensed. She handed him a compact metal device from one of the shelves. What's this? Your first chance, she said quietly, to stop being who they wanted you to be. The ceiling creaked again. And for the first time since the nightmare began, Marcus didn't feel like prey. He felt like someone who might finally fight back. The ceiling above them groaned, dust shaking loose like the building itself was warning them. Marcus tightened his grip on the compact metal device Sloane had handed him. It fit neatly in his palm, small, matte black, cool to the touch. It looked nothing like a weapon, more like a tool or a key. Sloane, Marcus whispered, watching the ceiling shudder again. What exactly is this? It's leverage, she answered quietly, against men who think they own the world. Not super comforting. Before Marcus could ask anything else, a deep metallic clang split the silence from above, followed by bootsteps, disciplined and steady. They were coming. Not searching, advancing, fast. Sloane crossed the room, flipping open one of the metal cases on the far wall. Inside were small discs, each glowing faintly blue. Flash suppressors? Marcus guessed. Disruptors, she corrected. They buy us seconds, not minutes. She slipped two into her pocket and tossed one to Marcus. His reflexes were sharper than he expected. He caught it cleanly. Sloane raised an eyebrow. You're steadier than yacht. Do you think? I'm terrified, Marcus shot back. Just hiding it better than usual. A faint smile cracked her usually composed face. Then the ceiling erupted. A metal panel crashed onto the floor, jolting Marcus backward. 3 masked attackers descended through the opening, a silent, practiced drop. Their movements were predatory, efficient, deadly. One landed near the empty glass cylinder, another near the shelves of files. The third, closest to Marcus. He froze. The attacker raised a silenced weapon. Sloane didn't hesitate. Marcus, now! Marcus squeezed the disruptor disc instinctively. A burst of compressed blue light exploded outward, rippling through the room like a shockwave. The air vibrated, the lights flickered, the nearest attacker stumbled backward as his visor shorted out. Marcus blinked through the haze. What? Did I just... You bought us 5 seconds, Sloane said. Move! Marcus ran with her toward the far side of the room. Behind them, the attackers shouted, recalibrating. Sloane reached the glass cylinder and pulled a hidden lever. The panel slid open, revealing a tunnel lined with steel and low lights. Marcus hesitated at the entrance. This is where that note was leading? He asked. Sloane shook her head. This is where your life was always leading. He didn't have time to unpack that. A bullet whistled past Marcus's ear, sparking off metal. He ducked into the tunnel as Sloane followed and slammed the panel shut. Darkness swallowed them, followed by the heavy clang of the attackers pounding against the hidden access. Sloane flicked on a small wrist light. The tunnel stretched far beneath the pier, reinforced like it was built for evacuations, or escapes people weren't supposed to survive. Marcus caught his breath against the cool metal wall. Why did you bring me here, Sloane? You could have run alone. You could have disappeared. Sloane kept walking, voice echoing faintly. I told you I'm not here because I need a bodyguard. Then why? She stopped, turned, held his gaze in the dim light. Because you're the only survivor of the first time they tried to erase someone connected to the truth. You're proof that their control has cracks. Marcus blinked. I'm not a soldier. You're something better, she replied. You're someone who can't be predicted. And in a world run by people who manipulate everything, unpredictability is power. Footsteps thudded behind the panel they'd sealed. Closer, faster. Marcus felt the old version of himself, the one who let pain break him, who accepted a life he never chose, shrinking, and something new expanding. Anger, resolve, a fire he didn't know he still had. What happens when they get through that panel? He asked. Sloane tightened her jaw. Then we use the second exit, but it's not simple. How not simple? She hesitated. It opens to the ocean. Marcus's stomach dropped. The ocean? I can't swim in... Not into it, over it. He stared at her. You're kidding. I never kid at gunpoint. The pounding behind them intensified, metal warping. Sloane leaned closer. Marcus, after this moment you don't get your old life back. The diner, the late shifts, the safe anonymity, you lose all of it. Marcus thought of Zuri again, her drawing of a rainbow she taped beside his bed, her whispered reminders to breathe, her tiny hand in his. I need to live long enough to see my daughter grow up, he murmured. And that, Sloane said softly, is exactly why you're not dying today. The panel behind them buckled inward. Sloane grabbed his hand. Run! This time, Marcus didn't hesitate. He ran. The tunnel narrowed as they ran, the low lights flickering like they were sprinting through the throat of some metallic beast. Behind them, the pounding on the sealed panel turned into metal warping, then cracking. They were seconds away from being hunted again. Marcus pushed harder, lungs burning, but something in him had changed. He wasn't running from danger anymore. He was running toward something. Survival, truth, revenge, maybe all three. Sloane shouted ahead of him, We're close! Her voice bounced off the steel, mixing with his own quickening heartbeat. The tunnel suddenly opened into a circular chamber. At the far end was a massive steel hatch, curved like the door of a submarine. Sloane sprinted to the control wheel and spun it with both hands. Marcus froze. The door wasn't blocking an exit. It was blocking a view. When Sloane yanked it open, the world revealed itself in a rush of cold, salty air. They were underneath the pier. A hidden exit built into the underside of the docks, where thick pillars held up the structure above them. Waves crashed below, spraying mist through the open chamber. Marcus's stomach dropped at the height. We're jumping? He gasped. No, Sloane replied. She pointed upward into the shadows between the pillars. We're climbing. Marcus stared at the rusted maintenance ladder bolted to one of the support beams. It stretched at least 3 stories up. You want me to climb that while men with guns are behind us? Unless you want to meet them down here, she said. Yes. Behind them, the tunnel echoed again, metal giving way, a violent scream of hinges tearing. They were through. Sloane shoved Marcus toward the ladder. Go! Something hot and electric fired through his nerves. He grabbed the rung and pulled himself upward. The metal was wet, slick with ocean spray. His hands shook. His shoes slipped twice. But he climbed, faster than he thought he could. Below him, Sloane climbed with practiced calm. But her eyes kept darting back toward the tunnel. Shadows moved inside it. Marcus climbed harder. Salt wind slapped his face as he reached the first support beam, platform. He grabbed it, swung his leg over, and pulled himself up, chest heaving, arms burning. Sloane, hurry! He whispered. She was halfway up when the first attacker appeared at the tunnel mouth, a black silhouette against the dim blue light. A suppressed shot cracked the air. Marcus flinched as a bullet pinged against the ladder an inch from Sloane's hand. "Cover me," she hissed. Marcus looked around in panic. There was nothing to throw, nothing to block with, except a loose chunk of concrete rested near the edge of the platform, likely broken from the pier above. He grabbed it. His brain screamed, "This is stupid," but something louder inside him screamed, "She saved you. Now you save her." He hurled the chunk downward with everything he had. It crashed against the ladder, exploding into debris. The attacker dodged left, enough for Sloane to climb the last stretch. Marcus reached down, grabbed her wrist, and hauled her up onto the platform just as two more attackers reached the tunnel opening. Gunfire erupted, bullets sparking against the steel beams. Sloane pulled Marcus behind a thick vertical support. "They're coming up," he shouted. "No," she said, pointing upward again. "They're driving us up." Marcus looked up through the darkness and saw a hatch. Round, old. Rust flaking around the edges. "What's that?" "A maintenance access into the pier walkway." Sloane was already climbing the next ladder segment. "Hurry!" Marcus followed, muscles screaming. Every pull of the ladder felt like lifting the weight of his entire life. Voices echoed from below, angry, shouting. Halfway up, Marcus slipped. His foot skidded off the rung, leaving him dangling by one arm. "Marcus!" Sloane hissed from above. "Use both hands!" He swung his leg back, found the rung, and forced himself upward. When he reached her, she was already unlocking the hatch. It groaned open, letting in blinding daylight. Sloane climbed out first. Marcus followed, rolling into wooden planks and sucking in fresh air. The pier was quiet. Tourists long gone, only gulls screeching overhead. But they weren't safe. Below them, climbing fast, came the men determined to silence them. Sloane slammed the hatch shut and threw a metal bar through the locking arms. "We bought seconds," she said. "Not safety." Marcus stood, still panting. For the first time, he didn't feel like the same man who served coffee last night. "We need to keep moving," Sloane said. "No," Marcus replied, surprising himself. Sloane turned. Marcus's jaw tightened. "We need a plan." A flicker of respect lit Sloane's eyes. "You're starting to understand." A violent pounding came from below, the attackers reaching the hatch. Sloane grabbed Marcus's hand. Then plan while running. And together they sprinted across the pier, not just hunted anymore, but beginning to fight back. They ran across the pier like fugitives from their own pasts. Bootsteps thundered behind them, closer every second. The hatch they'd just sealed buckled from below as the attackers slammed into it. Sloane didn't slow. Marcus didn't either. At the end of the pier, a narrow service staircase spiraled upward to a rooftop maintenance platform. Sloane pointed up. "Final climb! Move!" Marcus didn't argue, didn't freeze, didn't hesitate. He grabbed the railing and pulled himself up the narrow steps 2 at a time. His hands burned, his legs shook, but momentum pushed him higher. The morning fog parted just enough for sunlight to break through in thin gold lines. Halfway up, a gunshot cracked the air. A bullet tore a splinter out of the wooden railing beside Marcus's hand. "They're here!" he shouted. Sloane looked back. 3 attackers burst from beneath the pier, sprinting toward the stairs with terrifying speed. "Sloane, go!" Marcus ordered. He didn't even realize until the words "Lee" left his mouth. He had stepped between her and danger. They reached the rooftop platform, an open metal grid overlooking the ocean on one side and the empty boardwalk on the other. Wind whipped around them, violent, cold. Sloane ran to a metal equipment locker and yanked it open. Inside were signal flares, emergency radios, and an old marine beacon. Marcus's chest heaved as he pointed at the beacon. That thing going to save us? No, Sloane said. But something will. She pulled out a small black device, a transmitter, sleek, heavy, unmistakably expensive. Marcus blinked. You had that the whole time? No. She tapped it once, activating it. You had it. Marcus froze. What? She reached into her blazer and pulled out the same envelope he'd found under the plate. Except this time, she opened it fully. Inside wasn't a card. It was a thin micro-transmitter chip taped beneath the written message. Marcus felt his world tilt. You hid it under a diner plate? I needed it to disappear without drawing attention, Sloane said. A billionaire dropping a device gets noticed. But a $0 tip? Nobody looks twice. Marcus stared at her. So, you didn't leave nothing? She shook her head, eyes softening. No, Marcus. I left something that could save both of us. The footsteps hit the top of the stairs. The attackers stormed the platform, weapons raised, visors glowing red. Sloane pressed the transmitter into Marcus's hand. You're the only one who can send the signal. Me? Why? Because they don't know you have it. They would expect me to trigger it. You're invisible to them. That's your power. Marcus swallowed hard. What does it do? It reveals everything. Sends all my evidence to every major news outlet and federal agency at once. If they kill us, the truth still wins. Marcus looked at the transmitter, then at the men closing in, then at the ocean behind them, then at Sloane, breathing hard but broken. This ends today, Marcus said. He pressed the button. A piercing digital tone pulsed from the device. Lights on the beacon flared bright blue. From miles away, sirens began to wail. The attackers hesitated. Too late. Helicopters roared overhead. Black SUVs screeched onto the boardwalk below. Sloane let out a shaking breath. They're exposed, all of them. One attacker lunged forward, but Marcus stepped in front of Sloane, arm raised. Behind them, federal agents flooded the pier. Drop your weapons, they shouted. For the first time, the masked men froze. Sloane touched Marcus's arm gently. You saved my life twice today. Marcus shook his head. You're wrong. She frowned. How? Marcus exhaled, eyes burning. You saved mine first, when you told me the truth. The agents swarmed in. The attackers were disarmed. The rooftop platform filled with uniforms and weapons and radios crackling with orders. One agent approached Marcus. Sir, are you the one who sent the transmission? Marcus exchanged a look with Sloane. He nodded. The agent straightened. Then we're here because of you. Marcus almost laughed. A few hours ago, he was wiping down tables for people who didn't know his name. Now federal agents were thanking him. Sloane smiled. Really smiled this time. You're more than a waiter, Marcus Cole. He looked out over the ocean, wind hitting his face, and felt that truth land deeper than expected. No, he said quietly. I'm a dad. Everything else comes second. Sloane's eyes softened. And because of that, you survived. Marcus looked down at the envelope, the same one hidden under a plate he almost threw away. A $0 tip, but the greatest message he'd ever received. A lifeline disguised as nothing. A beginning disguised as an ending. If this story moved you, don't leave without showing love. Like the video, subscribe for more. Powerful Black single dad stories. Comment. Would you have opened the envelope?